All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So thank you guys for joining us today. This is part 3 of our saving series, so thank you as well. I see some familiar names, so thank you to those of you who attended part 1 and part 2. But if you didn't attend those, that's all right. There is still plenty to learn today, and you won't be missing any information. So today we are going to hear from the Financial Empowerment Center about some ways to continue saving both for your child's future as well as just saving generally in your own life. So I'm Elizabeth Fries, for those of you who don't know me, and I am an outreach coordinator at the Human Services Center Corporation, and we're in Turtle Creek. And just a few housekeeping items. We are going to be recording this webinar, so if you could please stay on mute throughout the presentation, that would be wonderful. Feel free to utilize the chat throughout the webinar, and we will have time for questions. So at that point, you're welcome to unmute yourself and ask a question if you prefer to do it out loud. You're also welcome to put it in the chat. But for when people are presenting, if you could just stay on mute to limit any background noise, that would be helpful. So we have Becky Johnson with us today from the Financial Empowerment Center, as well as Tony with Fund My Future, who we are partnering with to put this series on. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on over. Tony, I don't know if you wanted to say anything or if we want to.
Yeah, I just want to, just briefly, first of all, I want to thank you guys for attending this third session of the Fund My Future 3-part saving series. And some of you guys have been here since session 1, and woohoo, we appreciate that. Great. And for those of you who were unable to attend session 1, I just want to make sure that you get an opportunity to sign up for Fund My Future so you can get an opportunity to win up to $1,000, anywhere from $50 to $1,000 by making deposits into your child savings account. So it's real quick, it's real simple. You can, 3 minutes tops is what it takes to sign up and take the pledge. And the website is fundmyfuturepa.org. That is where you would go to sign up. Just basic info we need: email, phone number, your name, address, phone number, and all that good stuff. It's real simple, and then you'll be in our system. You'll hear from us. You get raffle tickets. You'll get a chance to win. We had a $1,000 winner last month. She only deposited $1, and she won. So I just want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to take advantage of that. So without anything further, I am also going to introduce Becky Johnson, and she's one of our partners as well through the Financial Empowerment Center. So I'm going to mute myself, and Becky, it's all yours.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for that introduction, Tony and Elizabeth. It's wonderful to be here with you today. Thanks for taking some time out of your snowy/rainy/slushy Tuesday to spend your lunch hour with me. So I'm Becky. I'm with the Financial Empowerment Center. I'm the program manager, and so I manage our team of financial counselors. I think some of you might already be familiar with us, and if not, I know this is one of many presentations we've done with Tony and with HSCC, and so for some of you this might be some old and hopefully some new information, but for some of you this might be entirely new. And so to Tony's point, please use the chat to ask questions. I am going to share my screen. I have a little bit of a presentation, and I will ask maybe for Tony or Elizabeth's help in monitoring the chat, if you wouldn't mind. Sometimes it's hard to see when I'm sharing my screen. I tend to miss stuff if I miss the little pop-up window. So if
I can help with that.
Thank you. So just cut me off if someone put something in the chat. I also, my presentation that I'll be sharing here, I'm hoping it's kind of an engaging, more of a discussion. I'll be sharing some things, but I really want us just to be talking and for you all to share or ask questions. And I'm hoping it can feel really engaging in that way. And so I am going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. Is everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So again, today we're just going to talk a little bit about the Financial Empowerment Center. I think what we'll talk about will tie in nicely, hopefully, with what you've already talked about in parts 1 and 2 of the saving series. And so this can kind of, slam it home for you. But also, I think this session is really going to be focused on just general tips and practices that you all can put in place to be your most secure financial selves. And, the FEC is a resource to be used along the way. So I encourage everyone to keep that in mind. For those who don't know, I always like to just start by explaining a little bit about the FEC and who we are, because it can be a little confusing. But we are a program operated in partnership with Advantage Credit Counseling, which is where I work, the City of Pittsburgh, and Neighborhood Allies. And we get funding through the Cities for Financial Empowerment, amongst a few other funders. But the Financial Empowerment Center is a nationwide initiative. And so there are other cities that have financial empowerment centers, but we are the primary source here in Western Pennsylvania. The only other FEC right now is out near Philadelphia, or in Philadelphia. So we're kind of straddling both sides of the state here. Just a little bit about what we're going to talk about. I will briefly touch on what the FEC is, who we are, what we do, but then I have some activities that are going to help to get you all thinking about preparing for your financial future. I'll share a few tips and tricks that we really like to talk about with clients that people have found, or we think can be really helpful in kind of getting your mind ready to work toward financial goals. We'll talk about some general tips that we love to share for financial wellness. And if anyone's interested in learning more or scheduling with the FEC, I'll let you know how to do that at the end of our presentation today. So again, please feel free to use the chat, put something in there. And if you have a question, you can save it till the end, put it in the chat, and we'll do our best to try to discuss those. And I am going to leave a healthy amount of time here, I'm hoping, at the end for some discussion. Okay, I like to start off with a few questions just to get people thinking. It kind of gets us into the mindset of, thinking about our finances, which can be a really touchy topic for a lot of people, right? Finances are not an easy thing. It's not easy to talk about. They're very emotional, not necessarily logical, and they can be very nerve-wracking and stress-inducing. And so I just wanted to pose a few questions here to kind of kick us off. But does anyone have a sense of the percentage of American adults with less than $1,000 in savings? This, by the way, my data here this data is about a little bit over a year old at this time. So I imagine if we were to get some data on 2020, this number would be even different, just given what we've all lived through the past year. But if anyone has a thought, you can go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, so I'm seeing a few people 65. Anyone else have a thought about that? Maybe just one more person. We'll try to get 2 answers here. Okay, 045. All right. So this was taken from a survey that was published at the very end of 2019. And so I've been trying to find some 2020 data and haven't had much luck yet. I imagine folks are still very much working on collecting that and analyzing it. But at the end of 2019, this Go Banking Rate survey found that close to 70% of Americans had less than $1,000 in savings. And of that 70%, nearly half of them had no savings at all. I imagine after the year we've been through, people's savings, some people have been able to make great strides, maybe if their income wasn't affected. But other folks we know have been hit really financially hard through the coronavirus pandemic. We've seen people dipping into their savings, dipping into retirement savings. There have been moratoriums in place to help prevent evictions or the shut off of utilities, but we have record numbers of unemployment right now. And so as a nation, I think this number is probably not even that accurate anymore. But I think it highlights the bigger, thing we're here to talk about today, is that savings can be a struggle. Savings is hard. And for a lot of people, it's not a goal they've been able to realize yet or do it to the capacity that they want to. And that's something the FEC can help with. And we'll talk more about that today. And does anyone, this is my last question for this. Does anyone have a sense of the percentage of households in the United States that are either unbanked, meaning they do not have a bank account, or underbanked? And what it means for us to be underbanked is to maybe have an account and not use it to its full potential, operating cash really heavily, but also still engage with some quote unquote fringe financial products. That could be like a payday lender, an online payday lender, or a check cashing institution, anything like that. And it's okay for people to use those once in a while, but they're not meant to supplement, you know, banking. Does anyone have a thought on that? 20, okay. We'll give it just another couple of seconds if folks want to try to get an answer in the chat there. So we've had a few more pop in. Okay, 40. 40 it looks like is a common theme there. Okay. So some of you were actually right on, and this was about 25 to 27%. So when you think about that in terms of statistics, we're looking at roughly 1 in 4 people either doesn't have or doesn't utilize a bank account to its full potential, which is a pretty high number when you think about it. You know, and so I bring up these questions about savings and banking because these are 2 areas that the FEC works really heavily in. And so I just wanted to introduce a little bit about our program today before jumping into some of the content that you might all find a little interesting. At the FEC, our primary offering is one-on-one professional financial counseling, and it's free, right? And so what this means is we work with folks, anybody across the Pittsburgh area. We don't have restrictions on where you live or how much money you earn. This program is available for anyone in the greater Pittsburgh area, Allegheny County, the surrounding counties to Allegheny, to help them manage their finances and work toward financial goals. And so we focus on 4 issue areas, which are highlighted here in my green boxes. I'm not going to dive heavily into each one because I do want to get into the presentation, but I just want people to think about any financial issue or goal that someone might have really falls within one of these 4 areas, right? To give an example, one of the big questions we get is someone who's looking to buy a home. That's a fantastic goal, often a long-term goal to have. And we might first, you know, talk with someone about, great, in terms of thinking toward buying a home, you know, have you looked at your credit lately? Do you know how to read your credit report? Do you know what that score is? And is it in a good spot where you're going to qualify for a good mortgage with an interest rate that's doable and an overall payment that's manageable? You know, we talk to people about the amount of savings that they've built up or their existing savings habits to work toward that down payment. You know, there are programs that can help with homeownership, and they're great and we refer to them, but we like to think of ourselves as sort of the foundation for any financial goal. Working on good credit, making sure you have a safe place to keep your money, working on building savings habits so you can go over to Tony and you can start investing in your child's future. You know, but you've already built the habit of knowing how to save money, whether it's $1 or $50 a month, whatever works for someone. Those are habits that are really the foundations of financial stability. And then reducing debt. And so, you know, when we look at all of these categories, we think that working on any one of these 4 focus areas or the issues that might underlie them is really about putting someone on the path to financial success. And so that's what we do at the FEC. I wanted to include this picture on the right. This is our FEC team. We had some photos taken a few weeks ago, hence we look freezing cold standing down by the water. You know, but I just wanted to highlight that we're here and available for folks who need help. And so please keep that in mind as we're going through this content today. And just anyone who comes to the FEC, some of you might already know this, but if it's new information, you can get free one-on-one support for as long as you need it. You know, our approach is very individualized. It's focused on what you, the client, are looking to achieve, but it's also judgment-free. Our goal is not to make you feel guilty or bad for mistakes or missteps you might have made in the past with your money management, but really to help you find a path forward, a sustainable path forward. You know, it's easy for us as financial counselors to say, oh, just do this, do this, do this. You know, we want to understand what is going on in your life. What are barriers that might make it harder for you to do some of these things, and how can we work to reduce those? And so it's a very individualized approach. Every single client's experience and outcomes in this program will be different, but that's the beauty of it, is it can really work for anyone. Everything we do is kept confidential, and we view ourselves as accountability partners. You know, and I say that because this isn't a program where you're going to be able to come and, you know, sit in the back and kind of just listen. Workshops like that are great, but this is really hard work sometimes. You know, every session someone's going to have homework, I'm using air quotes here if you can see me, that they're going to work on for the client and the counselor. You know, every single session we want that person to come prepared to at least talk about where they're at. And even if they haven't felt internally like they've made progress, we still want to talk about that. That's okay. You know, people don't come to us every single week and do amazing things. Sometimes they do, but sometimes it takes time and people have barriers, and we understand that, but we just really want to be that check-in partner to help you keep working toward your goals, even if there are setbacks along the way. And we're doing everything virtually right now. So just to highlight that, everything by phone or video. We hope to resume in-person sessions in the near future. Just haven't near future, whatever that looks like really though. You know, so just know it's not coming to a session right now. You can do it from the comfort of your home or any private space that you have where you feel comfortable talking with a financial counselor. All right, moving into this. So this is where I encourage some folks to put their thoughts in the chat. But I'm curious, when you all think about the word money, what words or associations are coming into your mind? People, this is just a random brainstorm. You can throw things out. Stress, I see, okay. I can speak for myself. I think when I think about money, I also experience stress, but I'm also excited, I think, because I think about the possibility of what I could do, but then I feel stressed maybe thinking about how far I have to go or save to get to what I want to do. Okay, lifestyle opportunities, those are great words. Does anyone else have some thoughts, associations, or words that come to mind when they think of the word money? I kind of think another word that comes to mind for me is just the word everything. Everything costs money or requires money these days. There's very little that's given for free or doesn't require some sort of financial transaction. You know, so money has inserted itself into every facet of our lifestyle. And it also determines what kind of lifestyle we can have, to Eileen's point in the chat here. Future, okay, that's a great word. Yep, your future, wonderful. All right, so if people want to just keep thinking about those associations, I'm going to move into the next screen here because we are going to talk further about how did we get from the basic definition of money being a medium of exchange, how did we get from that medium of exchange into all of these positive and or negative associations that people have with money in their lives, right? When you all think about those words that you brought into mind, where did you learn about money? Does anyone remember the first time or where they might have learned about money? Or do people feel that they didn't really learn about money? I don't know if folks are putting stuff in the chat, but I can speak a little bit about my first, you know, kind of memories about money. Much like Maureen in the chat here, I also felt that, you know, growing up, my family didn't talk about money. I remember seeing my parents. I knew that, I always remember when I was little, my mom carried the checkbook. This was like the 80s. And so my mom carried the checkbook and my dad carried the debit card, which felt really new then. And I remember every week, my mom would sit at the kitchen table and balance out her checkbook. And she would have to ask my dad, you know, Brian, what did you take out of the account? We've got to put it in the register. You know, but I never really heard them talking about it beyond that. I saw the actions that they, you know, weaved into their everyday life with money, but we didn't talk about the importance of saving. We didn't talk about preparing yourself to have a solid financial future. We didn't really talk about credit when I was growing up, you know, and so I'm seeing here in the chat, it sounds like people oftentimes grew up maybe not talking about it, or they learned about it through work or later in life, sometimes in school. Even I remember, how many of you, I'm raising my hand here, I took like a home ec class that was meant to give you life skills to head into college. And I remember I learned how to sew a stuffed animal. I learned how to patch a hole in a shirt and sew on a button. And there was a cooking component to that. But let me tell you, what I have not done really since I left high school was sew a stuffed animal. You know, this was not something that I felt was really relevant. And I think that we can all recognize that there's some changes that could be made in the educational curriculum around money, because these aren't things people are talking about, right? And so when you think about these associations that you have with money, how do they affect your attitude toward money? You know, when you think about the fact that you grew up not talking about it, or you weren't taught about it, how do you think that made you feel later in life? Or what did you feel toward money as you started to become an adult and had to spend it? I know I felt nerve-wracking. I felt very nervous about money because I felt like I didn't really know what was going on with money. But I also felt, you know, a little bit uneasy. I felt like I was constantly trying to catch up to the curve to learn about money, right? So I'm seeing some people felt challenged. Did anyone feel that they, you know, found in college or their younger years, right out of high school, anything, a really positive association with money? Did anyone have a mentor that was really helping them through? I don't know if that's the case for anyone in the room. You know, I would say a big part of my financial education started too when I got this job. You know, when I became a financial counselor, I knew that I was paying my bills on time. I didn't realize though that I really wasn't saving enough for my future. I had no concept of how much I should be saving for my future. You know, I'm seeing someone in the chat here say, I had my bills paid and food on the table, didn't worry too much about it after that. But once you have a child, and how many of you, I'm assuming a lot in this room might already have children, hence, you know, tying in with Tony and Fund My Future, but how many people want to set a different or better example than they had about money from when they were growing up for their children? You know, I don't have kids yet, but I already know me, okay, yeah. I already know that I am going to change the way I talk about money with my partner, with my future children, because I feel like this wasn't talked about when I was a kid. You know, I'm going to tell them the smart way to build credit. We're going to talk about the importance of saving for the future and of budgeting every month. And we're going to get into that in this presentation too. You know, but our behaviors and our attitudes, especially as they're tied to money, are very emotional. We know that money is not a logical thing. We all know what are the good practices we should have with money. You should save, you should stick to your budget, you should set aside a certain amount each month for the future. But in reality, that's a lot harder to put into practice, right? There are so many barriers and so many things flying at all of us all of the time, all throughout the day, that it can be really hard to integrate some of these actions into our lives. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit today. I want to talk about how our goal of financial empowerment, which is helping people to feel comfortable and have the skills and knowledge to manage their money, is going to help you kind of address some of your attitudes and underlying associations with money and how these impact the behaviors and practices you might be putting into place. And so understanding where those attitudes come from and the reason behind some of the actions you take with money is the first step in knowing maybe what you need to change or what you want to work on to change your attitude around money. And that's really what we're going to jump into today. So as we talk about preparing for the financial future, I think this must tie in really nicely with everything that you've been hearing from Tony and through the savings series, right? Our first step that we like to talk about at the FEC is organization. It's important to know that from our standpoint, the very first step is just knowing everything you have in your money world, all the bills you have, all the outstanding debts you might have, all of the commitments you've made around money. You have to get it organized. You have to put it in one place. Decisions that you make with money are your own, but they have a lot of factors that influence them. And so that's what plays into money being this physical and emotional process, right? The decisions that you make with your money determine your success, but how organized you might be are what allow you to really say, okay, I'm ready to tackle my financial situation head on. You know, you have to know what's coming in, what's going out, how much you have left over each month, what things can be cut from your budget, where you have some flexibility, and what you want to work on. And so one of the things we like to point out is the first step is to find an easy to use system that works for you. Does anyone have either like a filing system or a budgeting system that they really like? I list them at the bottom here that we really like, such as Mint, You Need a Budget, or Good Budget. I myself use Mint. I like Mint. Mint is a free, it's built by the folks that do TurboTax, the Intuit, that's the name, Intuit. And I like Mint because it lets me build out a budget. It lets me put all of my bills that are due in it. But also when I go over my budget, Mint sends me an email. And it says, you know, Becky, you were going to spend, you know, $50 on clothing this month and you've spent $85. And sometimes I know that I went over budget and I'm usually trying to adjust or say, okay, where am I going to pull that extra $35 from? But also I like the accountability that Mint gives me. You know, we can be our own accountability partners, but having someone else talk you through it is a huge, you know, it can be a huge incentive to keep going. That's what the FEC can do for folks who are interested in coming to us. And then while I use my coworkers all of the time as accountability partners, I also like to use some of the apps that are out there. If you like an app or you like paper, no matter what you like to be organized, that's okay. Use whatever works for you. And these last 2 points I just want to touch on. When it comes to getting prepared for your financial future, be honest with yourself. You know, how many people have gone into a meeting or they say, you know, do you have a budget? Do you stick to it? And you want to say yes. You tell yourself, yes, I do. But in reality, you know that you're not sticking to it as well as you could. That's okay. You know, it's okay to be honest with yourself about where you're at. I see someone here said they like paper. They have I'm curious to know more about your Clever Fox budget book. Maureen, if you have more information about that and want to share that in the chat, that would be great. That's a new tool for me. You know, but being financially secure really does require you to be honest and understand what you're doing in terms of habits and practices right now, and then what we can do to change those habits and practices. And so I think one of the first steps that we like to talk about in changing and planning for our financial future is setting goals. And I'm not going to go over with all of you what a SMART goal is. I'm sure, this is not going to be your first rodeo with SMART goals. We all know the importance of setting financial goals and having that feeling of working towards something. For some people that can be really stressful, for other people that can be really rewarding. But we know that it's not easy, right? For example, someone who wants to save for a vacation or save for months for a vacation, and then they lived through 2020 and couldn't realize that goal. You know, how many people had things planned in 2020 that they weren't able to do because COVID hit, right? We can't control the world around us. And there are unexpected, I see someone raise their hand, exactly. How did you feel when you couldn't do that thing that you had saved for or worked so hard for? It can be really discouraging, right? Because you think, wow, I did this once, but do I feel like I'm gonna be able to do it again? You know, it's so easy to get bogged down with all of the factors around us that influence our finances. You know, but for each and every one of our goals, we have to have patience and the right mindset. And so when it comes to setting a goal, we like to phrase it as something that you're willing to work for. If a goal isn't something that you actually want, you're not going to do it, right? You have to be ready to work toward it. It's not just a matter of setting the goal. You have to be ready to work toward it. We say that a lot with the FEC. You know, people who come to the FEC, you have to want to change. You have to feel motivated to want to keep coming back. And it might be hard and it might be scary, but you have to want it at least a little bit to make a program like this work for you. And I think that's the same with setting any type of goal. You know, so we like to say when you set a goal, the best thing is to make a plan for it. And that plan can be based on these different aspects of the SMART goal: the specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. You know, I think probably the most difficult one here for some people is making something that is achievable and realistic and timely. Okay, so 3 of them. You know, an example is we have a lot of people who say, I want to own a home in 6 months' time. That's a really wonderful goal. That's a tough goal though, you know, kind of depending on where someone's financial situation is at. And so make sure that you're being realistic with yourself and you're setting a realistic timeline. Remember, your timeline doesn't have to work for anyone else so long as it works for you. What some people can do in a month might take someone else 5 months. You know, there are a lot of factors that go into that. There is that person's own mental health, the outside factors that influence that person's money. You know, do they have, for me, setting a goal of savings, you know, I don't have children. When I go to the grocery store, it's just me. I don't have little voices telling me that they want something, you know, and so I feel like that might be easier for me than for other people. I see in the chat someone said that they are a paper person, they need to write stuff down. And I love what you said about not making savings optional. I assume that means you're making it a requirement, which is something that we're going to talk about here. And that's great when you're developing a SMART goal, right? If you write out, so an example of a SMART goal, I'm going to use this savings thing that someone talked about here. If someone just says, I'm going to save money each month, that's a great goal, but it's missing a lot of these aspects we're talking about, right? I think a better goal is I am going to directly deposit $50 every paycheck into my savings account for the next 6 months. You know, right there, you were specific. You gave yourself a time frame. You were realistic. Well, you know, I'm trying to be realistic. That's, again, going to be dependent on your income situation. But you gave yourself a time frame and a timeline and the length of time that you're going to do this goal for. Goals can be short, medium, or long-term goals, and it's okay if they all overlap a little bit. We love to write out goals at the FEC. I think that's one of the best ways to really solidify a goal in your mind. Does anyone have any goals that they're working on right now that they might want to share with the group? You can put them in the chat, but I would love to hear if anyone has a specific goal that they're in the middle of or working toward in the future. And what about that goal do you think makes it realistic and achievable for you? So I'm going to let you think about that. If anyone wants to put anything in the chat, you go right ahead. But just be thinking about what are some goals that you have for yourself and write them down. See if you think they meet the criteria for this SMART goal. And if not, okay, someone put in the chat, this is great. Charlene wants to start a business. That's fantastic, Charlene. And I think that's an admirable goal. And what I would say is let's just add in what kind of business and what kind of time frame are you looking for that, and how much do you need to get started for that. So someone else, Serena said home ownership. That's great too. And we can be thinking about how, you know, when we talk about home ownership, are we going to focus on credit or savings or both? Yes, and Serena has been working with the FEC. That's fantastic. And I hope you're getting some benefit from it. You know, but we know that having a partner to navigate through these really big life goals can be helpful. And so I hope the FEC is doing what you need it to do for you as you work toward that goal of homeownership. Absolutely, wonderful. At the end, I don't know if anyone if anyone wants to share a goal, feel free, or ask a question at the end too in developing a SMART goal. You know, but find a way that works for you and makes it achievable for you. All right. We're going to talk about the dreaded B word, which in my mind is a budget, but a spending plan and a budget. And I say this is dreaded because this is, for us at the FEC, this is really the starting block of financial stability, is you have to have a budget. I'm just, I popped into the chat box again, and I see that Tiffany wants to pay off a car in 4 years, not 5. And that's fantastic. And Tiffany, I think the one thing that you can think about with that is to pay it off quicker, how much do you have to increase your monthly payment by? So if you pay X number of dollars per month, what do you have to increase it by to shave off that 12 months of payments? That's a fantastic goal, because right off the bat, you're gonna know what you need to pay, how regularly you need to pay it. And I will say, for anyone looking to pay off something sooner, just read the fine print of whatever contract you signed, whether that's for a mortgage or a car loan. Sometimes there can be penalties for paying things off earlier than the anticipated time frame. So just make sure to read the fine print and see that you're not going to have to pay a fee or a financial penalty of any kind for paying something off earlier. I know it seems crazy that that is in place, but believe it or not, that is absolutely in place. Because companies, what's the #1 way that a company is going to make money off of some type of payment like this? Does anyone know? Maybe not the #1 way, but one of the big ways, interest, yes. And so interest, that's right. For all of these loans that we have floating out there, they are accruing interest. And paying off in 4 years, not 5, means that company in their eyes loses money on interest. You know, that is why I just encourage everyone to read the fine print and make sure you won't be penalized for that. I've seen it happen before, so just do your due diligence and make sure that you can fit that into your budget. All right, so when we think about budgeting here, and we think about having this spending plan, a budget is a plan for every single dollar that's in our lives. It's everything that's coming in and everything that's going out. Every single thing in the budget and the way we spend money is either a need or a want. We all know what needs versus wants are, and these can be different things to different people, but in general, that need is something that is necessary to survive. You know, the things that come to mind for all of us, I'm sure, are housing, food, clothing, transportation, childcare. These are expenses that we need in order to keep our lives moving forward. Utilities are another one. Right now in the wintertime, heat. These are all needs. We need them to survive and sustain ourselves. But then we have those wants. Those wants are, you know, for me, they're the expenses that I like to have, but could live without. Wants and needs are going to be different for different people. Again, what someone prioritizes as a want might be someone else's need, and that's okay. But make sure you know in your budget what is a need and what is a want. And I will say the #1 area where folks can cut out in trying to balance a budget are some of those wants. Remember that cutting a want out of your budget is not a lifetime commitment. This is a situational change you can make in the short or long term to reach a goal. So I'm going to give an example. I am, hopefully, fingers crossed, supposedly going to be getting married next month. This is a weird time with COVID. If anyone else is trying to plan an event like this during COVID, it has been a pain in the butt. But from a financial standpoint, we also knew we needed to do some extra saving for this wedding. And so what I decided was, thank you. What I decided was for this wedding, that in order to be able to increase the amount I was saving each month, I cut some things out. Some things that I really like to have, but that weren't necessarily needed. One of the big things I cut out, which was easy to do anyway in the time of COVID, but I cut out getting my nails done. I know that can seem like sort of a frivolous thing for some people, but I enjoyed getting my nails done. I felt good about myself. It brought me confidence. It was just something I did for myself every single time. But I was realizing I was spending like $60 a month on this. And I said, okay, for the next, 9 months, I'm going to stop getting my nails done. I still do them, but I do them myself at home. I made a one-time investment in some supplies so I can do my nails here. And that doesn't mean I'm not going to go back to the nail salon, but that $60 extra has been going into my savings account. And I feel good because I'm building up savings for a goal that I have, which is my wedding. I am going to get my nails done for my wedding. And I'm not saying this is something I'm going to stick with even after the fact, but I felt good that I made a plan and could stick to it for this one particular goal that I have. Another example of that might be, I know people who've made changes to their telecommunications bills, or they're trying to, kind of reduce maybe internet or cable costs or something like that. Needs and wants. A matter of a balanced budget, if you don't already have a surplus, is really looking at your needs and your wants, what can stay, what has to go, and what can be removed even temporarily for a short period of time. Those wants are things that can really easily get a budget pretty heftily off track. I have some friends that I'm trying to get them thinking about needs and wants, and it's a struggle, and that's okay. But, part of it is just reminding yourself, asking yourself before you make a purchase, is this something I need right now? Can I let this sit for 3 days? And if I'm still thinking about it, maybe then I'll buy it. I do that a lot in online shopping. I put things in my cart and I think about, okay, do I really need this right now? I'm going to marinate on it for a week. And if I still really want that item and it's still available, maybe then I'll buy it. But I'm going to give myself 1 full week to really think about it. And for some people that can be really difficult. But if anyone wants to try and do it or have an accountability partner, I'll do it with you. We can, fill our carts up and then we can wait on it for a week and decide if we really need or want that. But that's just a little bit of a tip to identify what are the needs and what are the wants. This seems like such basic information, right? When we talk about needs and wants and building out a budget, but it's amazing how many people struggle in this area. How many people in the room feel like they have a budget? You can put it in the chat. You feel like you have a budget built out. Not whether or not you stick to it, but just that you simply have it. You know what's coming in, what's going out, and kind of where you're at. So I see someone raise their hand, okay. I do. Does anyone feel like they don't have a budget, or they have a budget and they don't stick to it? So Tiffany, are you saying not at all? So working on one, okay, right? And so we're kind of a mix in this group. I have a budget that I try to stick to. I don't stick to it all the time, but I am doing my best. One of the big ways to develop a budget that we like to use is to track. So I know like some of you are already coming, okay, no budget but would like to start. And I know some of you are already working with the FEC, or Serena said she was. And so how many people have ever tracked every single penny they've ever spent? Everything that's coming in or going out. And when I say tracking, I mean you could write it down on a piece of paper, you could just be looking at your bank account, but how many people for a period of time have looked at every single penny they've spent over the course of a week or over the course of 2 weeks? Has anyone ever done that? Yes, okay. So Maureen, you say you've done that. Did you think it was challenging or hard? Someone said they tried. For those of you who tried or you've done it, what did you think? Did you think it was easy or hard, or what challenges did you see? Or what surprised you about it?
Hi, this is Maureen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been working with Alicia since July.
Oh, wonderful.
She's awesome. I really like her. she's been helping me out a lot, but since I started with her, I have started using a budget book,
Okay.
and I just do it twice a month. So I sit down at the middle of the month and do the first 2 weeks, and then I sit down at the end of the month, do the last 2 weeks, and then see what I really spent. And for me, I think I'm gonna have to see maybe even like a full year's worth of spending before I can decide on a real budget for me.
Yeah.
But I'm
Sure.
working towards home ownership, and she's already helped me out with building my credit, building my
fantastic.
savings. She hooked me up with Fund My Future. That's how I, got a savings account for my daughter, and then attached Fund My Future to it. So it's a great program. I recommend it to all my friends.
Oh, that's wonderful. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing. So I see even in the chat here, we have some other people who are a little bit scared or maybe nervous to find out what they're spending, or they're just not even sure where to start, or you spend, Charlene, yes, you spend too much in a certain area. This is absolutely the case with a lot of people, and that's okay. But right off the bat, your tracking helped you to understand that maybe you feel you spend too much. So I think right off the bat, then we're able to have a real conversation about how to reduce that. So if we were able to look at your tracking and say, okay, over the course of the last month, you ate out 3 times a week. Let's try to cut that down to 2. For those who could be really die hard, we could go down to 1. But I think baby steps are sometimes the best way to reach a goal. But let's say I want to cut out 1 meal out per week. That 1 meal out can make a huge difference in your budget, but also it's a sustainable baby step you're taking to try to cut out the amount you're spending on food or reduce it by just a little bit. Not everyone can stop everything cold turkey, and to the point from Chanel about being a little bit nervous about what you're spending, that is absolutely understandable and relatable. But I think tracking is what's going to help you come face to face with it and then make a plan to work through it. We all know that the way we spend money is oftentimes it's not logical. It's very emotional. Our spending can fluctuate over time. So Maureen's talking about budgeting over the course of a year. We can all see, I imagine we all just came from a big period of spending. We just finished the holidays, right? Even though we tell ourselves we're not going to do it or we're going to spend less, it's just a joyous time. We needed some joy this year. If, doing something nice for your family or your loved ones made you feel good and brought joy, that's okay. But let's just get back on track then afterward. Your FEC counselor is not going to make you feel guilty, or at least I hope not. That's not our goal. We want to help people say, okay, this happened. Let's get back on track. And when it comes to spending, when we think about that, the habits we have and the way that we spend emotionally, that's what makes it so hard for us to get back on track, but also so easy to stray over time. And so a few little tips we have here. If people are unsure where to start with tracking your spending, just look at your bank statement. Look at your bank statement once a week, or do Maureen style every 2 weeks. I tend to look at mine every 2 weeks, and I budget out every 2 weeks as well, because I budget based on my pay period. I know exactly how much I'm going to get paid every 2 weeks, and I know what bills or what portions of bills need to come out of each of those paychecks, and I have it written down. I actually just keep a document in my Google Drive. That's what works for me. Not saying it works for everybody, but if you need a place to start, look at your bank statement. Look at your receipts. When you spend money or you have a receipt, put your receipt in a safe place. Put it in a place in your home where it's there, it's accessible to you. You can see it, but it's not like staring you in the face when you're trying to do something. I like to keep things on the table behind my couch, which is the table that's in my entryway. Drives my fiance nuts, but as I told him, this is what works for me. He always is like, can't this table be cleaner? And I said, well, I'll get a plate. I'll get something to put these receipts in, but I need them to be there because that's what's holding me accountable. Once you've kind of figured out what's coming in, what's going out, and how your spending patterns are emerging over time, one of the things that's going to be really important and gets into that piece of budgeting is to then figure out, based on the money I have, when do I have to pay things? And so I wish I had an example to pull up. I don't have one here, but I can share if anyone has questions about this. When I say make a calendar of bills and due dates, an example is, I'm going to share a story. We had a young woman who came to the FEC, and she was working full-time, not earning a super high income, but earning a manageable income. She was young, she was single, so she was living on her own, paying rent, but she was struggling to pay her student loans. And she came to us and said, I just can't fit this student loan payment in. But we reminded her, student loans, they're never going away. You can file bankruptcy and your student loans are still going to be there, But also, the longer they go unaddressed, that can really play into your credit, and it's going to negatively impact your credit. So let's find a way to address this. But what happened was all of her bills, her rent, her student loan payment, and I think maybe even one of her utility bills, they were all due toward the end of the month. And so she would get paid at the 1st of the month and the 15th of the month. The 1st of the month would come, she would, live her life, spend her money, but she wasn't really thinking about those bills because it's only, February 1st, and that bill's not due until February 28th. So it's in the back of my mind, not doing anything with it. But then what would happen is she'd get paid on the 15th, and then she would say, ooh, now I've got to pay my bills. I have to pay my rent for next month, got to pay my bills. And she never had enough money to do it because she was trying to pay her monthly costs out of half of her income, but doing whatever she wanted with the other half. And we said, that student loan, yeah, the payment's not due until the 28th, but it usually hits your account or your bank will tell you it's due on or around the 5th or the 7th of the month. And we said, what's to prevent you from paying it 3 weeks early? And she said, well, I just never thought of it. Like, how do I even know how to track this? And we said, let's make a calendar. So we printed out like a monthly calendar. It had a little box for each day. And we helped her say, I'm going to pay this on this day. Even for me, the money that I contribute toward our household expenses here, I take a portion from each of my paychecks. And that's what works for me. I can't do one lump sum because I don't have always enough money left over, but I can do a little bit from each paycheck. And so I've balanced out my budget in that way. Find a system that works for you and know when things are due, but it's okay to pay early. It's okay if you're paying a bill 3 weeks early, that's okay. Some of you might already be doing this, but that's a pretty simple step that someone can implement that can make a difference in the money management over the course of a month, but you just have to write it out. And I talk here about the 50-20-30 rule. For folks who are looking to build a budget or you're not sure where to start, this rule kind of breaks out your wants and your needs within a budget. So this is pretty flexible, but a general rule of thumb, 50% of your money going toward needs. So again, think of what are those needs for you. A roof over your head, food, transportation, clothing, childcare. 50% of your income, give or take, to needs. And then 30% of your money going to wants. Those wants might be recreational activities, entertainment, shopping, shopping for things that aren't necessarily basic provisions like clothing. It could be splurging even on food items. If you do most of your shopping at Aldi, I shop at Aldi, but then when I go to like Giant Eagle Marketplace, it's like, I don't even know, it's like a candy store for me. It's almost a little bit overwhelming, but sometimes I like to splurge on certain things. That can go into that 30% of wants. But then 20%, if you have the ability to do it, 20% is a good rule of thumb to start toward paying off existing debts or putting money into savings. And so again, that ratio can look different for every single person, but again, make sure you're putting some of your money toward paying existing debts. This could be credit card debt. This could be student loan debt. Student loans right now are in deferment. Any federal student loan is in deferment right now. And so people, if they're not making payments on federal student loans, I've been putting that money for myself into my savings account. That's just a little bit more money that I'm building up for the wedding. I know that's not going to last forever, but it's been a good rule of thumb for me to feel like I have some control. So keep in mind that 50-30-20 rule of the needs, the wants, and repaying debt or savings, and find a ratio in there that's going to work for you. And again, if anyone ever wants to talk that out with anyone at the FEC, that's absolutely fine, and we'd love to help you build a plan. So I'm not going to focus on this. I will share this presentation out. But if anyone wants a challenge, I am challenging anyone right now, and I will do this with you. We can compare trackers at the end of a month if you'd like. But if you are not doing it, set yourself a tracking challenge. For the next 30 days, track what you spend through mid-March. Feel like you're getting some control heading into the start of the new year. We're also well into tax season. So set this challenge for yourself. Find a method that's going to work for you, whether it's keeping those receipts like I talked about, looking through your bank account, or writing it down in a little notebook. I keep a notebook with me also too, my little pink book. And sometimes I will write things that I spend in here. I have a smaller version that I'll keep in my purse. It's like I did Weight Watchers once, and they tell you to track your food. I used to have to write it down, and it worked really well for me. But it's the same concept, right? Track your food, track your money. And then also just note what made you feel good, or what surprised you. And so if anyone wants to do this 30-day tracking challenge with me, I am here to be a partner for you. And I would love if someone wanted to be a partner for me. So just feel free to let me know in the chat, and I'm happy to do this with anyone. And I will actually check in with you via phone or email or Zoom or something in 30 days. And we can kind of go over together how we felt that went, what was surprising, and what we want to work on. Okay, and so I realize I'm getting close to time here, and I do want to leave some time for questions. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about focusing on savings. You know, you've all been working with Tony, and you're talking about savings for your children's future. And I think that ties in really nicely to savings in general for someone's lifetime, right? We at the FEC say that savings really starts from establishing a routine. You need to build the habit over time to feel like you can save. It doesn't matter if you're saving $1 or $5. It matters in terms of the amount of money you have, but in building the behavior, you're building a habit that's sustainable. You know, I like to save every paycheck. I save a portion of my money. And I feel good about that because, you know, I know that right now I'm only able to save X amount of dollars. Let's say that's like $50 a paycheck, you know, but if I can build the habit of saving per paycheck, as my income goes up, my ability to save goes up. You know, so that savings of $50 per pay might grow to 75 or 100 as my income grows or as I have more dispendable income. And I've built the habit of saving twice a month. You know, so that can really be a key factor, is find a habit that you can build and stick to and something that is sustainable for you. If people aren't sure where to start with savings, we love to say, let's set aside 1 week's worth of income. That's a big FEC focus area, you know, and that's nice because it's fluctuates for everybody, no matter what your income level is. Think about what is the equivalent of 1 week and start with that for a savings goal. For some people that might be more, for some people less. You know, you could also build out an emergency fund. Think about what you spend in 3 to 6 months. Again, that's going to differ for everyone in the group. But if you're looking for some short or long-term savings goals, these are great areas to start. It's about building habits, no matter how small you start. Think about Tony. For Fund My Future, they talk about $1 a month into a savings account for your child makes you eligible to unlock those amazing cash prizes they have. You know, imagine when you can get it up to $3 or $5 or $10. You know, but the fact is you're starting by building that monthly habit of savings. I won't go into this super far, but other savings areas that we like to talk about, and we do bring these up at the FEC, and if anyone is looking to get more information or wants to talk this through, you know, we can look at retirement account savings. We're not going to be able to really talk through how you might invest that money. Nobody wants my stock market advice, I promise you. But we can help you understand where you're at and what you could be saving as a percentage of your income. When I came to the FEC, I realized I was not saving enough money. I was saving vastly under what I needed to be saving per month to feel like I could have a comfortable retirement. So I upped my amount per month. You know, that's going to be different for every single person. And if someone wants to talk that through, we're here to do that. But if you have the ability to put some money toward retirement, try to do that. Some people don't right now, and that's okay. That's something to work toward in the future, but have it in your mind. Same for the savings accounts for children or grandchildren or other young ones in your lives. I think Tony's probably covered that area pretty well, so I won't go into depth with that. But if you have questions, obviously talk to Tony, talk to me. We're happy to help you make a plan for this. And the other thing I want to say about savings, you know, we've had a lot of these, what I refer to as one-time opportunities. I'm thinking of stimulus payments or these opportunities where people aren't paying federal student loans right now. Can that money be going to cover basic expenses, or can it be going into savings? And the other thing about savings is do not be afraid to use it. That's the beauty of savings. A lot of the times it's for a goal. I see so many people who are afraid to dip into savings when they need to. That's what savings is there for. It is there to act as a cushion. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel like you've somehow let yourself down if you have to dip into it. You can take money out to get you through a tough time, and then you can work to build that back up. But don't be afraid to use the money that's there and that is meant to help see you through a tough time or some sort of transition. That is exactly what that money is there for. And you'll feel so good that you had it, even if you have to use it, and you can work to build it back up. All right, I think I have, these are our last little slides here. And so we're gonna bookmark this slide for when I take it back to the full group here in a minute. I would love for anyone to share out if they have other goals that they're saving for, or is there a savings practice that you have found that works well for you? I would love to hear that. So be thinking about that. Feel free to put it in the chat, and I'm just gonna wrap up here and then we'll take it back to the full group and I can see all of your faces. All right, and just the last few tips that I have here for financial wellness. You know, the FEC can help you play a role in a lot of this, but even if you're trying to do it on your own, develop a budget, make a plan, check your credit reports and scores. I don't know how many of you have looked at this recently. For someone coming to the FEC, you probably are monitoring this regularly. If anyone's familiar with annualcreditreport.com, I've hyperlinked the website here and I will be sharing this out, but you can check your reports weekly for free through April of 2021. That might even be extended out. It used to be you could only check your reports once a year. Now you can do it weekly. I just looked at mine 2 Saturdays ago. I pulled my annual credit reports and I actually found something on my Equifax report that needed to be disputed. And so I was able to go through that process. The FEC can help you pull your credit, or you can do it on your own, but be utilizing this tool that's here, that's free, and that is a great step toward financial wellness. Help yourself set goals and celebrate as you're reaching them. For those of us who are going to engage in that 30-day tracking challenge, you can bet your bum we're going to have some sort of virtual celebration at the end of it, because it's a big deal. That's a big thing to track for that long and to get through it. So we're going to celebrate it, and then we're going to set the next future goal. And if anyone, you know, wants to learn about their options for payments or credit cards or other debts that they might have, you know, the FEC is happy to be a resource for you and help you call a creditor or a lender, talk about payment options or hardship programs, but also negotiate payment plans. You know, this is a big step in service we've been offering throughout COVID times, because we've seen people need to learn what their options are or to defer a payment. Oftentimes, if you call and ask, they're going to be willing to work with you on some level, but a lot of people don't know how to have that conversation. And so if anyone wants to do that, whether you do for yourself or you want to work with the FEC, know that half the battle is just calling and starting to have a conversation and asking for help. And some lenders are going to be willing to work with you. They won't all, you know, but some of them will. And so if after what I've talked about, anyone is feeling like they want to schedule an FEC session, some of you are already coming, it sounds like, which is fantastic. But if anyone else is interested or wants to learn more, I've included our phone number and an email address here. This email kicks directly to me. I check it, I look at it. You can get a hold of me